So here's the thing that's on my mind. I feel like nothing is working. That's a huge exaggeration, but I feel like I'm building things that are like at the limits of all of the platforms. And also I feel like where I am, I think I might be at like a skills plateau, which always feels like hard because I don't know what's on the other side of it. But like the easy things feel really easy and don't take any time, and the hard things feel so hard that I feel like I'm not making progress, or that like I should just hang it up, and a developer would be able to do it quickly, and for me it's going to take me like 10 hours and someone else. So I've like asked for help, which has been great. But there are just a couple of things like with this form builder that I told you about, where it's like, okay, like Flow can't do it. So I downloaded this thing, but that thing had bugs. And then I had to learn how to code that thing. And I just feel like it's cool because I love problem solving and I love the creativity of it. And I'm also like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, whatever happened to being an admin where like configuring Flow should be coming up with what the logic is and putting it into the flow, and not like, or yeah. I also like have been working on my mail merge project, and I had this super weird error. It took me 3 hours to figure out, and it turns out that Conga doesn't like it if I open my dev org from my command line. There's this like command you can put in that says like log into my org and open a new browser tab for me. But so I'm like feeling like I'm like have these building blocks and I'm using them, but I am getting so stuck, and I feel like either there's a skill that I am missing that I don't know what it's called, or these platforms can't do what I want them to do, but they have this kind of panacea of like, we can do literally anything, like whatever you want. And thinking like, maybe it's like this thing of knowing just enough to be dangerous, where I can like dabble around and then get stuck. Yeah. And I used to feel a lot of like excitement around getting stuck and getting unstuck. And more recently, I've been like, I don't think it's supposed to be like this, where I'm spending so much time on weird errors. Why is this happening? Why? Like, I would not suggest to somebody else that they go down this career path. And I actually like have found it to be rewarding. Like, I don't want to quit my jobs, but I just feel like things just aren't working smoothly, and it feels really frustrating.
Can I sit with that for a second? Things are not going smoothly, and it is frustrating. I don't think there's anyone in the world who can't relate to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are going not smoothly because it's just not our day, right? Like you trip, you spill your coffee, yeah, like everything's hard. Your doctor cancels the appointment. You have to reschedule, like all the things that make something not as smooth as you foresaw. And then it sounds like there are maybe some other things that are not happening randomly or to you. Like you've jumped into difficult terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's maybe it didn't look like difficult terrain because you had the excitement that you described. Like, I love that feeling of getting stuck and getting unstuck. So when you jumped into the difficult terrain, you're like, it's okay if I get stuck.
Yeah, you know? Right.
But maybe that excitement and those feelings didn't show that you were diving into the 50-foot deep end when
usually. I mean, it's also this like elastic last 5% where I'm like, well, this error, once I get past this error, it'll surely be ready to go, you know, and then it's like turns out there's kind of new issues behind the resolved issues. So there's a sense of like not getting the satisfaction of having solved the first problem, because I'm like, well, I don't have that error anymore, but it still doesn't work.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we talk about this a lot. I know I do, that a lot of frustration with technology at any level, from like opening your cell phone to the most difficult of code. If your expectations of the tech are not the same as the tech's expectations of itself, then it's a clear place for frustration to happen. So I think, what, if I can kind of repeat back, I think I heard you say you had a thought, or we could phrase it as an expectation, that once you jump this hurdle, there's not a lot of hurdles going forward.
Right.
That was the expectation. Whereas the tech is sitting there unbeknownst to you, not telling you, like, actually, I've set up 10 more hurdles. Have fun, or if you go in this lane, there's 10 more hurdles, but not if you go a different direction. You can't see those expectations right now.
And the marketing in some ways makes it worse, because the marketing is always like, there's not going to be hurdles. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, right. If you follow these steps to a T, your data looks exactly like this and your use case fits within. I was just listening to a podcast about how it was Seth Godin, actually.
Seth Godin.
It was. Who was saying, it was talking about industrialism and how like systematizing and automating things has done great wonders. And especially with marketing, there was a big push to say, who's the average? And if, there are edge cases, right? He told this amazing story about a person who was trying to redesign a pilot's chair to be better suited for pilots of now, since the last pilot's chair was like 30 years ago. And he got the average of all these different like factors of a pilot's chair. And then when they put it in place, they realized that everyone was sitting not in a circle that perfectly fit them. They were all these jagged edges of the circle. They couldn't reach that knob, or they couldn't turn that way. Mm-hmm. And so everyone was an edge case. And we have gotten into a time where edge cases are the goal almost. Like, we want to be individual.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I think in, talking to your frustration, like I think it seems almost like you've jumped into some edge cases that are difficult. You're like, darn it, like another error. It's because I'm trying to do something like really big or outside the like average use of this tool. But I just want to like put back to you with like an affirmation and kudos, because the way we're going is towards edge cases. So the fact that you might be dealing with some edge cases of your softwares is really, I think, because you care about really individual experiences. And so although it is frustrating, and I'm sorry that it is, I think your intentions and the way you got into it is in line with your values.
That really relates to it's another way of thinking about this idea that I said before of like knowing just enough to be dangerous, which I should probably unpack because I don't think any of this is really that dangerous. But
yeah, we need to unpack that phrase.
With the whole edge case thing, right? Like, when I didn't have some of the practice that I have now, and I'm saying practice specifically, not like a specific skill, then I probably would have just said, oh, that's impossible. Like, sorry, that's just how it is. Like, Salesforce can't do X, or Google Sheets can't. Google Sheets doesn't have a formula for that, so we can't do the math that way. And now I know that we can do this further customization. And so I get myself into these situations where I know that the thing should be possible. And I don't say, oh, 80-20 rule, we're just not going to address that edge case, right? It's like, I'm like saying, okay, let's address that edge case. But
your software vendor maybe potentially even looked at that edge case and was like, no.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's recently what happened with this form building project is the developers who were working on this project with us were like, yeah, there's not really a good way to make that extra carriage return go away. Can you just live with it? And I was like, well, can't you fix it? And they were sort of like, well, it would be an unlimited amount of, it's a bottomless pit, basically. They were like, we just don't know how long it's going to take to fix it. And we don't have an unlimited budget. And so we can't take on unlimited things. And so my reaction to that was like, well, I guess I'm the elastic. Like I'm the person who's going to like put in the not actually unlimited, like there is a limit, but I'm going to put in the like
all that you got,
the late hours and stuff because I want to figure it out. And because I'm paid salary, I'm not paid hourly. So like I kind of can mush time around and be like, well, this is my number one priority. So I'm going to try to figure this out. Yeah, so there's a lot there.
Sure, yeah. Wow. So I wonder, maybe we can think just about, I don't know if this will help your frustration in any way. It's not even meant to, but I think what could be really fruitful is to maybe think about some of our users or some of our friends or colleagues or whatever, and when they feel this feeling and you're feeling it. Sometimes it's not easy, like, to pull up the empathy and truly step into the feelings of frustration when you you're like, VLOOKUP, why would you have frustration about VLOOKUP? Once it clicks, you're good to go. But
oh my gosh, and I was helping this one person with a VLOOKUP recently, and she had typed everything in perfectly. The problem was that one of the tables was format as text and one of them was format as numbers, and Excel was like, I can't find this, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's why
I figured it out because of it was right justified. But it's like I was like, yeah, you got the VLOOKUP part right.
Yeah, but the step-by-step, and this is such a perfect example for almost all technology. Just because you can click the buttons or do the step-by-step doesn't mean that you'll have the same expectations that your computer has. So you're going to get frustrated. But yeah, I think, now take this. I'm going to use your experience. Yeah. I can almost feel your frustration. I can almost get it. It helps dial it up.
And it's like the self-doubt too of like, why am I so bad at this? Or like surely
shouldn't I be able to? Yeah,
surely somebody else who's better than me wouldn't have this problem. I hate that creepy thought. It's so terrible.
As professionals, I am encouraging us, myself, my friend, you, and anyone else who might hear, to, from these moments in our own lives, to really hold those and look at the cases where other people are hitting these feelings in places where we wouldn't. And I think that would really help our work.
Oh my gosh, you're so right, because this one was like, I have pretty good acuity with doing screen flows, which is this like kind of UX. It's this way of making dialogue boxes pop up in Salesforce so that people can type data in a more customized format. And I'm like, it's not easy to do. And I've gotten okay at it. I'm not saying that I'm like the best person at it, but it's like relatively in my comfort zone. And I'm not saying this, it's like, it's hard to even talk about, to be like, this thing that's hard, I'm pretty good at it, right? Because I don't want to feel like I'm bragging. And then the thing that I'm stuck on is like the level 3 of that. and I put myself back in that place of being like, well, I guess I don't know how to do anything then.
But you know how to do a damn lot.
And so one of the things I'm getting from your suggestion is like doing level 3 flow, downloading all of these extra components and changing them and extending what's possible to do in flow is just as frustrating for me as a beginner building their first flow. Yeah.
And we would tell beginners, stick with it. We would tell people who are frustrated with tech, stick with it.
Phone a friend.
Tech. Yeah, like talk about the relationship, the expectations. Yeah, so like you should feel frustrated. I think the goal again here is not to make you not feel frustrated in any way. It's just to acknowledge the frustration and then maybe see where it could give benefit in other places.
So here's the last piece of this journey that I've been on is this is so unusual for me, and I wonder if you can relate. Is after I figured out this really hard thing, usually I feel this like amazing adrenaline rush, like, wow, I did it. This was so hard. I'm like good at this. Let me tell the world, like, let me write a blog post. You haven't seen any blog posts about this. And the I had this thought of like, maybe I should have just bagged it before. Like I really had this thought of like, was it worth it? Because like our time is limited and I put all of it into, can I fix this thing, which required, not phoning a friend and making a new friend and deploying new code, which was really not something I'm familiar with and took me hours and hours and hours to follow various instructions to do it. This was like the developer was like 2 words, then 2 words, deploy this. Me, it was like, I need like a 5-paragraph essay explaining exactly where I type it and how the programs are connected and stuff. But I sort of had this like thought of like, maybe I should have just said this isn't possible, even though now I know it's possible. And I talked with a mentor, and I was like, I don't know, do you think I made the right call? And she was like, absolutely. You were curious, you were ambitious, you figured it out not just for your org, but for everyone, because it's an open source thing. And so the problem that I found with it is now going to be fixed for everyone who downloads it. And she was just like, it was important to you. Like you did it because it was important to you. And so, yeah, I never really got the full satisfaction of having solved this hard problem. It was like almost too hard. Like we recorded a video about being at that, like, I've done something similar to this before, and now I'm going to try something a little bit harder. And this was like, I've never really done anything like this before. This is so hard.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you ever felt like you put so much time into it and you figured it out and then you were like, I don't know if it was worth it?
Yes, I have. And I remember writing a blog post that explained it and then said, should you do what I did? And the answer is no. Like, don't go down this route. Most people shouldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe you should, maybe I should, but most people
Or
were
maybe we should like once a year, but like you can't be in overdrive all the time.
Yeah, but I think that it I don't want us to even, sorry, let me gather my thoughts. I've been involved in projects that have gone on a long time and I've looked at the end of it and then I've said like, damn, that failed. I'm not happy with the result. And it might not have even been like the same kind of exercise that you're going through of like challenging yourself and going to the edge case. It was like just a regular, normal kind of project that at the end failed. And I thought, did I waste all my time? Did I, those moments have taught me not to get down on myself about it, to learn from it, to move forward, use it as an example in the future.
Mhm.
But what I want to ask you is, how much of your work do you think was like a kind of yak shaving situation, right? Because I know we talked about that before and some of the benefits of that approach. Like you get all these other things. Like if did you see anything else? Did you learn anything else? Were there other things about yourself or the work that came up because of this?
Yeah, totally. I
Share them
learned
necessarily, but
I learned how to do something in this program called SFDX, which is this code thing for Salesforce and how to move code around. And I also like reached out to someone who I've long admired, but didn't really know super well one-on-one. And I was like, hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time? And we kind of quickly realized that the problem I was having was based on this custom app that this other person had built, and my friend knew him. So then I did this leapfrog to this other guy, and we were sending Loom videos back and forth for a while, and then we had a Zoom, and I was actually thought he was really cool. I mean, I shouldn't say actually. I didn't know much about him. And we came up with 2 ideas for blog posts that we want to do, and so I really networked, and that is kind of awesome. And I also like I do remember when I made the decision to advocate for spending time on this, which was like, so what if there's this carriage return? Who really cares? But basically, when you're like scrolling all the way down on a form and the spacing isn't planned well, then you can get confused between whether the answer box goes with the previous question or the subsequent question. And that seemed like a big enough problem that we needed to address it one way or another. So there was like a real like usability problem. It wasn't only aesthetic, and that sort of like tipped the scales into like, let's like really like pull out all the stops and try to get this to work.
Oh, it sounds like we need to revisit our ethical oath, because I think part of that was asking, should we do this work? Should we go with this vendor or not? Should we do this work or not? Like, and if you sit back on your values, like you said, the value wasn't because it's cool, because I'm challenging myself, which are all totally okay values too. But this also sat on your value for your users having the best experience to get them the grants they need. And, so I think that's positive.
And that was really, because our consultants were like, if it's purely aesthetic, like, can't you just live with it? And
maybe yes, or maybe.
Yeah, for some people, yes, for some people, no. So I did get a lot. If it wasn't just that, like that form finished up like 2.5 weeks ago, and I'm still kind of feeling like the residual, which is, normal, like stress doesn't just go away. But then also there were some other just things I was working on, where I was just like, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And sort of got into this like, nothing works. It's all smoke and mirrors, like maybe it's like easy for someone who really just wants to track sales or really just wants to, I'm trying to think of like an Excel example, like has data that aren't changing very quickly. Like you type it in and you just look at it. But I was like, none of the, like, sort of like at an existential level, like something is profoundly wrong, that these things that I'm trying to set up are not working. And I like being challenged, but don't usually feel like I'm working against the platforms. Usually I feel like I'm like leveraging the platform or like doing exactly what the platform was built for. And this was like kind of it felt kind of like new and uncomfortable.
Well, maybe as a closing piece, just in the vein of talking about the relationship between you and your technology, and like speaking to you, Samantha, it might have felt like a fight. It might still feel like a fight. But when you give feedback to someone out of love because you want them to grow and you want it to get to a place that they can help others, I think you were giving some gentle love to the program, the tech itself, the bits and pieces, and the people that work at the organization and everything. And even if they didn't say like, oh my gosh, you're right, we need to, change this or whatever, that it still can have an impact.
Yeah.
The next time it comes up, they'll say, wait a minute, like someone else said that. And I think the relationship that you're having with the tech right now is not necessarily a fight. I'm sure the tech doesn't feel necessarily that it's a fight, but I do think it is worth whatever the conflict and struggle that you're putting in, because it's the reason you're doing it. The push and the drive is a people-centered version. It's to make the experience with this technology best for the people using it, and so there can't be anything that comes out of that, I think, that doesn't lead towards something, for that goal to be better for the people.
Better for the people.
Better for the people. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I think it's really vulnerable and brave to talk about the places where you are frustrated and all the experiences and emotions that come with it. Thank you.
You're welcome.